Welcome, friends, to another episode of CTR TV. Christ Redeemer Parish has many parishioners who shine, but my guest today sparkles. Her name is Megan Littlejohn. She's a singer and a dancer and someone that we are just delighted to have with us because she has quite a pandemic story to tell. Megan, welcome.
Hi, thank you, Msgr.
Thanks very much for being with us.
My pleasure.
Tell us first a bit about the singing and the dancing. How you got your love for that.
Well, when I was 5, my parents realized that they had to do something with me other than just let me run free and roam around the backyard and perform my reenactments of Disney movies. So luckily my dad was the rec director in our town, and he actually set up a ballet class curriculum, and it was partially for me, and I took it, and I did that for 5 years, and one thing led to the next, and then I started dancing in the city that was closest to me, and I danced my whole life. And then music has always been a huge part of my life, so I began singing at church, psalms at church, different solos and things, and then I always did choir, and music and singing has always been part of my life. So when I graduated high school, I was actually going to be an engineer, and I had a scholarship and everything, and I decided, no, I want to try performing arts because it's what I love, and if I don't try it now, then I might never will. So the decision to pursue dance, pursue theater, pursue music was not an easy choice, but an easy choice at the same time. And I get to do what I love. And for an energetic person like me, it's a good outlet for my enthusiasm, let's say.
And your enthusiasm is beyond question.
Yes, that's what many people say about me. So I gather that.
Absolutely. Now, you've been on stage with one of our parishioners and with one of our staff.
Yes, I have. So I was doing a production, the first production that I did in Vancouver, actually, and I met Thomas Chan. And
Thomas, who is working in our office and preparing to follow his dream by studying musical theater in Scotland, of all places.
Yes, which is very exciting for him. I can't wait to see what this does for him. But I actually remember we were moving a crazy set piece backstage, and it was a terrible experience. It was during Tech Week, it was a house, it was heavy, and so I said a prayer because we needed it in that moment. It was 10 p.m. on a Tuesday, we opened on a Friday, and Thomas just looked over at me and he said, I don't even remember what he said, but of course it came out that he also was Catholic. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, you're a man, you're in theater, and you're Catholic. And so Thomas Chan became one of my greatest friends. That was a production of A Christmas Story. And then a couple months later, I did a production with the same company, Annie, the musical Annie. And Thomas wasn't in that, but my roommate had told me about one of her friends who might be in it, and his name was Daniel. And she said, oh, I bet you'll get along fine. He went to this thing in Poland, World Youth Day something, and I was like, what? Another Catholic boy in theater? No way! And so the moment that I met Daniel, I walked up to him in rehearsal, and I think I said something along the lines of, hello, my name is Megan. I'm also a Catholic. It's nice to meet you. Can I be your friend? And we've hit it off since and haven't looked back.
And of course, you were talking about a recent guest on our show, Daniel Corelli.
I am, Daniel
Who is
Corelli.
one of the Corelli family that sings every Sunday at Christ Redeemer at Mass.
Yeah.
Have you been in a show with him since?
No. So we just did Annie together, and then with different things went on during the year. He was in a couple shows, and I was doing some teaching, and then we were actually cast in a production that unfortunately was stalled, canceled due to COVID-19, and I actually had to withdraw because I got a different contract.
Which we'll talk about in a minute. But also in the course of your exciting career, you did some dance studies with another one of that family.
I did. So Daniel's sister, Sophia, who is actually the same age as me, she ran a great series of classes at Pro Arte Studio, Pro Arte Center down my street in North Vancouver. So she was opening it up to the public, a Broadway jazz class, and of course I took it, so it was nice. Haven't been in a show with Sophia, but as dancers we have got to dance together, which has been lovely. So much fun.
So you got out of a show that was going to take place here.
Yes.
That didn't take place because of COVID, but you got out of it before COVID.
Yes.
And you got out of it for a very exciting reason.
Yes, indeed.
And I think that the viewer is going to be very intrigued to hear what you did next.
So I got hired for a cruise ship contract, which is very unique in itself. I had never done anything like it before. I actually auditioned on a whim. It was, I actually remember Thomas Chan, when I had a discussion the other day, or the day before I did it, and I said, I don't know if I should do it. I'm feeling conflicted, and he said, just do it. So thank you, Thomas Chan, for encouraging me to do it. But I auditioned on a whim, and I got the job with the cruise ship company, and I decided to go because I just felt like I'd never have the chance again in my life to try something as unique as that. And having done a part of it anyway, a fraction, it's very unique. Living on a ship and being a theater performer is not like doing a theater production with the Arts Club or with any company on the mainland in Vancouver. And that's simply because you basically have to be a sailor and be a theater performer at the same time. There are rules, there are restrictions. I had to take lots of classes, and then Jack, where Jack and Rose are in the Titanic, you know where Jack stays in the ship, in the bottom of the ship, and Rose is at the top and Jack is at the bottom? That's where we slept, in the bottom of the ship. So yes, you get to be a performer and wear beautiful costumes and have great esteem being hired by popular cruise ship companies, such as the one I was with, but you do have to sleep in a bunk bed in a closet.
I believe that this was called, back in the day of Jack and Rose, steerage.
Yes, indeed.
Now, the other thing I would think will be different from the Arts Club, you're not doing the same show every night. Is that fair to say?
Well, kind of. The role that I was given was half dancer and then half part of the entertainment team. So the dancing that I was doing, we would do a deck show for the tourists that would arrive, and we would do it the first day.
On the deck?
And on the deck, yes.
Oh,
in
wow.
the middle of a Bahamian summer at 3 in the afternoon, and I am basically allergic to the sun. So it was not the most cool and refreshing of experiences. But we would do 3-day and then 4-day cruises. So we would do that deck show twice a week. And then the next day in the cruise itinerary, we would do a completely different show for the kids on the deck. And then because I was part of the entertainment team, I was running around the ship doing other performance duties, but that was just the nature of my contract. So there was a lot of consistency, but it was also just a lot of like, and there was a lot going on. It was different every day, and so it was stressful, but it had its perks.
So you sailed out of what port?
Port Canaveral in Florida.
In Florida.
Yeah, so we were there twice a week.
And they did the Caribbean.
Yes, we did. We went, this cruise that I was on actually has the most boring of itineraries. It doesn't go to Europe. It doesn't go around Mexico. It actually goes Port Canaveral to somewhere in the Bahamas, to somewhere else in the Bahamas, and back to Port Canaveral in 3 days. So we would see the same ports. Well, I was only on the ship for about, well, that's a lie. We only did real cruises for about 2 weeks, but I would see the same ports for those 2 weeks.
So 2 weeks into this exciting contract, COVID-19.
Yep.
And how quickly did the parishioners, that's an interesting thing. How quickly did the passengers get off the ship after the beginning of the pandemic?
So when I was on there for 2 weeks of what's called a crossover period, where the original cast is there, the new cast, us, comes in, and you do a swap. It's a new word. A swap. You do a flip-flop, that's what I was trying to say. And you slowly take over their shifts. So basically that's a transition period. So after 2 weeks of crossover, we did 1 full week of normal life. Everything was cool, no COVID. Then on a Sunday, COVID was announced and the United States was basically going into lockdown. So that week after COVID was announced, where we had 2 cruises that were really, really iffy, we knew COVID was happening and we were starting to take caution procedures. But I almost said customers, the tourists were there on the ship for that last week. And then after that, it was cut cold turkey, they were gone. So.
But you couldn't hop on a plane and come home.
No, I couldn't. That's the twist.
That's the big story.
That's the kicker here.
You were marooned.
We were marooned. It was a very emotional experience. We finished that last week of like iffy cruises. You know, there were still people on the ship. Many people had canceled their cruise after that Sunday that a pandemic was officially announced. So we only had, I think we had less than half capacity, but the people who were there were really happy to be there. But after that, the company basically had said, we'll commit to one last week of 2 cruises, and then everybody has to be off. So at that point, no, I almost said customers again, no tourists, guests were allowed on the ship. It was just us. So at that point, the company kind of said, well, hey, like with the rest of the world, we kind of have to wait this out, try to be positive. We don't know where this is going. So for about a month after that, it was 3 weeks to a month, they kind of said, well, we might start up again.
I think we all thought that could happen.
Well, yeah, I think so many people, you have to be positive. You have to try and keep your eyes on the horizon. But with that mentality, they tried to keep us working. We were still paid, but they kind of said, hey, why don't we do some extra rehearsals, maybe share some things with other crew members, because of course you have beverage team, hotel team, everybody is still on the ship. Actually, we had a meeting with the captain and with every crew member who was still there. Crew members, yeah. And I remember just sitting on the deck and looking around and being like, there's 1,500 people still on this ship. You know, there's no other passengers but us, just the crew. So we tried to keep it real for a while. And then it got crunchy. What happened was the Center for Disease Control made different rules, and suddenly cruise ship passengers weren't allowed to take airplanes. And we hadn't been sent home at that point merely because the company was being positive. It was in every right for them to keep us on the ship. We thought things were going to start up after 2 weeks, and that's of no one's fault. But as soon as they said cruise ship passengers can't go home, we were painted with this red stripe and we were literally stuck on the ship. So there I was in the middle of nowhere, well, in the middle of the Bahamas, in the middle of an ocean, floating there, not being allowed to leave. And that was life-changing. And I'm a person who loves, I'm working very hard on it. I have people praying for me and trying to help me with this, but I'm a very controlling person. I like to be organized and on top of things in a good way. And then for them to tell me, you can't go home, that rocked my world, and it changed everything for me. And I was so angry. I don't really experience anger. I'm a very positive, happy person. Things upset me, but at that point, everybody that I wanted to be around, my family, my loved ones, they were all back home, and they know who they are. I had a very strong support system, my family and somebody else and some others that were supportive of me from the beginning. We kept in very close contact. Thank goodness for the Wi-Fi that I had, but everybody that I wanted to be with wasn't there, and actually the company extended our Wi-Fi plan so that we could have, instead of just texting people on iMessage or WhatsApp, we could now call them and we could send pictures. So all of a sudden I could be more in contact with the people, my loved ones that I wanted to keep in touch with. But other than that, there was nothing I could change. I still didn't have cell service, really. Like, again, the middle of the ocean is literally the middle of the ocean.
That's it.
So there was so many things to adjust to, and I had bought an extended data plan because I realized, well, if I'm going to be stuck on this ship, I need to be able to stream mass. And what I had done is, one of my friends who is also a Catholic, and she was in my cast, and I was beyond wonder that we could relate together. We used to have Mass at Our Lady of the Cruise Ship Porthole, and we would stream daily Mass on her phone because she was an American and she had an extended data plan. And it was kind of like the Jack and Rose situation. I didn't get Wi-Fi in my steering cabin, but she had service in her way high up cabin, but only in her porthole, which was, you could sit in it, and it was a little on the outside of the ship. So we would stream together, but she actually got sent home. And then I was like, well, there goes Sunday Mass and my data plan. So I bought one. And streaming Mass was literally the only thing that kept me in one piece, other than the people that I had to connect me to home. But it was such a strong connection point for me to just keep me sane, keep me reaching for what I knew was at home, what I knew I was going to come home to, and just something that I know, something close to my heart.
That's a wonderful story.
Oh, good.
I was going to ask you, whether the food was good, but that's a far more important point, that you were somehow interacting with the bread of heaven from a distance.
Well, I tried the best that I could. It was crazy because the time went slowly, but it also went really fast. And soon soon before that statement was released that said we couldn't come home, well, my family and I were like, well, you know what, COVID-19 is, to heck with a handbasket, you're probably going to come home for Easter. And so we talked about it, and I was even on the phone with one of my friends, and I said, I might even be able to drive into North Vancouver, because my parents live in Chilliwack, so the plan would have been to come home to them first to visit, and then everything changed, and I couldn't come home for Easter. And so the first Mass that I was able to stream was Holy Thursday, and then having the Triduum. And I know that was a first for here at the parish too, because that's when online Masses were starting. And it was literally the only thing that I could keep, that would keep me together. And it was funny, because I didn't have service in my little hole in the bottom of the ship, I had to find a place by myself. And so I would sneak into the all-purpose room, the sunroom, that they usually hold for weddings in the ship. And I would sneak in there when no one was in there. And actually a couple people walked in on me one time, and I turned around and I said, I have permission to stream Mass, please go away. And they laughed because I'd asked my manager, I said, my manager of my cast, I said, I'm Catholic and it's really important to me that I get to stream Mass, can I go do this? And he said, oh, sure. And I was like, oh, good.
That was permission.
It was permission. So I was nice every Sunday. And then of course through the Triduum I got to set up I had my little phone, and I set up my crucifix on the couch. It was a little couch. And then, just like any CTR Mass, I had my plant. I had a small desk plant, because we have lots of plants. And I had a tea light. And, the first thing I noticed about CTR when I came here was the rugs. And I collect rugs, and I actually have a miniature rug that's actually a mouse pad. And so I got to set up my little rug, and it was amazing. I had a little icon frame, and I was like, well, this is exactly like CTR. I have my rug. Oh, and I had a floor rug as well. So I had my rugs, I had my plant, I had a tea light, and I had Mass.
Well, this is a really, really touching thing, because when we stood in front of the camera, we didn't really know who was on the other side. Mm-hmm. And I guess you'd win the prize for being the furthest away. But that's a beautiful story, because it's what we hope to accomplish with the live stream, to really connect people to the church.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it did that.
Well, it was really cool, because then I actually had a friend. People kept getting sent home according to what their country was, and the Canadians and then one other country. We were left at the end, and there was 5 of us, and all of my friends knew that by this point that my faith was something very close to my heart. And through the struggles and the strife, I was very vocal about the fact that even on a Sunday, which was a work day for us, we were still working. I worked and I was paid up until the point I left the ship, but I'd squeeze it in whenever I could on a Sunday. And I actually had a friend approach me one of the Sundays and say, he said, hey, why do you do this? What is this? Can you explain this to me? It was really nice, because other than that, it was something for me to keep me through this, to keep me going through this. And then at the end, it was kind of something that everybody else knew about. And my one friend approached me and wanted to know more about it. And I was really happy to share that. And actually, my faith study group was doing a study. They did source and they did growth without me. I was very upset because I wasn't there to do it with them. And so I actually did source by myself. It's very different on your own, but I had some checkpoints back home, and I could, I asked questions when I would need it. But that was the other thing that really kept me sane, is just having my faith to pull me through. And there was a moment 3 weeks after Easter, and I know it was 3 weeks after Easter because I was doing a third Sunday of Easter journal reflection. And I was sitting on the deck, staring out into the ocean. This is very poetic. And I realized that I had nothing but my faith. There was the ocean, there was nothing else but the ocean, and it was a day that the Wi-Fi was down. So I had no one. I had no one to talk to, and I was in the middle of the ocean, and all that I had was God. And it was moving, it was eye-opening, and I was like, wow, this is all that I have. And I went through an extremely transformative faith experience because I was stuck in the middle of nowhere, and I had nothing to rely on but God. And that was my experience.
On that note, I think we will thank Megan Littlejohn, singer, dancer, and evangelizer. Megan, thank you so much for being with us. That was delightful.
Thank you, Msgr.